hands, or of their demon worship, idolatry, murder, sorcery, or immorality. And he saw another strong angel with a little book open in his hand, placing one foot on the land and the other in the sea, proclaiming things to the servants, the prophets, things which John was not permitted to record, but things which finish or complete the mystery of God. And John was commanded to take the little open book and eat it. It tasted sweet like honey, but made his stomach bitter. And he was told to prophesy again concerning many peoples and nations and tongues and kings. And he was given a measuring rod like a staff, with which he was commanded to measure the temple and the altar, but not the outer court, which had been given to the nations. And he saw two witnesses prophesying, slain by the beast that comes up out of the abyss. And he saw those who dwell on the earth rejoice over their dead bodies. And the breath of life from God came into them. And they stood on their feet, and a loud voice spoke and said to the two witnesses, "Come up here." And their enemies watched them ascend into heaven. And he saw a great earthquake which killed 7,000 people. And he heard loud voices in heaven saying, "The kingdom of the world has become the kingdom of our Lord and of his Christ, and he will reign forever and ever." And he saw the temple of God in heaven opened, and the ark of the covenant appeared in his temple. And then John saw a woman clothed with the sun give birth to a male child. And a great red dragon swept away a third of the stars in heaven and sought to devour the child of the woman. The child was taken to heaven, and the woman fled from the dragon into the wilderness, where she was protected and nourished by God. And then John saw war in heaven, Michael and his angels waging war with the dragon and his angels, who were not strong enough, because no place was found for them in heaven. They were cast down to the earth. And he heard a loud voice saying, "Now the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Christ have come. For the accuser of our brethren has been thrown down, he who accuses them day and night. And they overcame him because of the blood of the Lamb and because of the word of their testimony. And they did not love their life even when faced with death." And he saw the dragon, who is the devil, persecute the woman who gave birth to the male child. But she flew into the wilderness to her place. And the dragon was enraged. And he went off to make war with her children who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus. And John saw a beast with 10 horns and 7 heads coming up out of the sea. And the whole earth followed after the beast and worshipped the dragon. And the beast blasphemed against God. And it was given to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And authority over every tribe and people and tongue and nation was given to him. And then John saw the Lamb standing on Mount Zion with 144,000 witnesses. And he saw and heard an angel proclaiming the gospel to those on the earth. And a second angel announcing the fall of Babylon the Great. A third pronouncing judgment upon those who worship the beast and his image and receive his mark on his forehead or his hand. And he saw angels reaping the earth to fulfill God's judgment. And then John saw the 6 bowls of the wrath of God poured out. And he saw the fall of Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth. And John heard great choruses of praise and worship in heaven. And he saw the marriage supper of the Lamb. And heaven opened. And he saw Jesus on a white horse, followed by the armies of heaven, clothed in fine white linen. And out of his mouth came a sharp sword. And on his thigh he had a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And John saw the beast and the kings made war against him. And the beast and the false prophet were cast into the lake of fire. Satan was bound for 1,000 years. And then he was released. And once again deceived the nations to rebel. And he was cast into the lake of fire forever and ever. And then John saw a great white throne, and him who sat upon it. And the books were opened, and the dead, small and great, stood before the throne and were judged according to their deeds. And John saw that if anyone's name was not found written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire. And then John saw a new heaven and a new earth. And after all these things, God was not yet finished. I want you to think about this for a minute. In our Bibles, we have many stories, many historic events. We see God working. We see God's people. We see great events like the flood of Noah, God's call on Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We see Moses delivering the children of Israel. We see the rise of prophets and of kings in the Old Testament. And we watch as God's own people fall away from Him into sin and idolatry. And He sends them into the nations. And we watch as the Messiah comes, Jesus. And we see the tremendous stories of Christ and of His disciples, His church. And we read these great teachings in the epistles. And then we come to the book of Revelation and we see all of these things. And after all of those things, God is not yet finished. He has one more thing He wants to show us. One more thing he wants to show you. I have spent my life doing the work of the mission. I have been away from home for much time, away from my wife and my children. And there were many lonely times on the mission field. I remember one time being in a very rural place in India. I was lying in a hut, and the men that were with me were sleeping on the ground outside the hut, surrounding it, because the villagers had threatened to kill me. And I remember lying there and looking up through a hole in the ceiling of the hut. And I could see way in the distance the lights of this airplane. And I thought, oh God, how I would love to be on that plane, going up home, to see my wife and my children. And so I would carry with me something that was very precious to me, and it was a picture of my family. And I would take that picture out, and I would look at it, and what comfort it brought to me. It was the thing that I loved the most. And I loved to take that picture and to show it to the people I was with, so that they could see what I love. And many of them fell in love with the picture. In fact, some of them tried to steal it from me. They would ask me for it. And I would say, no, you can't have it. But fortunately, our God is not like that. Because what he wants to do with us this morning is, in a sense, take out a picture, a photograph of the thing that he loves more than anything. Because he wants you to love this. He wants you to love this even as he loves it. And so after all of these things, God has this one more thing he wants to show us. He wants us to see the one thing he loves more than anything else, and it is his beloved bride. He wants to show you his church, not as you and I see the church, but as he sees the church. And brothers and sisters, this is the very last picture in the Bible. These are God's part